The sound of a slap echoed through the marble floors of Monarch Bank's lobby. Carla Harris stood still, her cheeks stinging from the blow, eyes locked on the face of the man who had just struck her. Martin Jenkins, the customer service manager. His name tag gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights, a symbol of his supposed authority. "I've already called the police," Martin shouted, his voice deliberately loud to ensure everyone in the bank heard him. "We don't serve your kind here." His words were carefully chosen to assert control, to humiliate Carla in front of the entire lobby. The customers who had been going about their business froze mid-transaction, their eyes darting toward the commotion. Phones were pulled out as the crowd began recording, sensing another viral moment in the making. Another example of racial discrimination in a public space. Some onlookers looked uncomfortable, others were clearly curious, but most remained silent, unwilling to intervene or get involved. Carla, however, did not respond with anger or humiliation. She straightened her back, adjusting the simple cardigan she wore over her blouse, the red handprint on her cheek becoming more visible. She didn't retreat in shame or frustration. Instead, she stood tall, her posture unwavering, and spoke with a calm confidence that contrasted sharply with the chaotic scene around her. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding," she said, her voice measured and controlled despite the sting still present on her skin. Carla Harris was the very definition of self-made success. Raised by a janitor and a school teacher, she fought against every obstacle life threw her way. She worked multiple jobs to put herself through college, earned an MBA while raising her son after her husband's tragic death, and built Harris Financial from a one-room consulting firm into a $5 billion banking empire. Her name was a fixture on the covers of business magazines like Forbes and Black Enterprise, and her philanthropy spanned hospitals, universities, and community centers across the country. Yet none of that was apparent as she stood in Monarch Bank's lobby that day. Her normally immaculate designer suits and signature jewelry were replaced by off-the-rack clothing, her once meticulously styled hair now hidden beneath a simple headscarf. She looked like any other middle-class woman trying to do business in a bank, a woman determined to be treated like everyone else. What Martin Jenkins didn't know was that 3 weeks earlier, Carla had acquired Monarch Bank in a quiet, private deal. The public announcement wasn't scheduled until the following month, and only a select few bank executives were aware of the ownership change. The reason Carla had purchased Monarch was deeply personal. This particular branch had significant history for her family. 30 years ago, her grandmother, Margaret Turner, had walked through these very doors seeking a modest home loan. Despite having perfect credit and a solid income, she was denied without explanation. The rejection altered her grandmother's future, forcing her to remain in rental housing rather than building wealth for her family. It was this historical injustice that drove Carla to buy the bank, to uncover and address the discrimination that had festered there for years. Discrimination doesn't show up on balance sheets, Carla had told her team during the planning stages. Bias doesn't appear in quarterly reports. The only way to truly understand how customers are treated is to experience it firsthand. Her team had questioned the plan. What if you're recognized? What if something goes wrong, they had asked. But Carla had been resolute. You can't fix what you don't understand. I need to see it with my own eyes. That night over dinner, her son Marcus had asked, "Why not just fire everyone, Mom? You own the bank now. Why go through all this trouble?" Carla had responded thoughtfully. Firing people won't solve anything. They'll just move to another job and continue with the same behaviors. The system needs to change from the inside. Marcus didn't fully grasp her response, but Carla knew that this wasn't just about owning a bank. It was about challenging a broken system, one that had denied people like her grandmother for far too long. And now she had the power to change it. Carla Harris was no stranger to struggle. Raised in a modest neighborhood by parents who worked tirelessly to provide for her and her siblings, she learned early on that nothing would be handed to her. Her father, a janitor at a local high school, and her mother, a public school teacher, had both worked long hours to ensure their children had opportunities they never had. They instilled in Carla the belief that hard work could overcome any obstacle, but they also taught her the painful truth. The world often had different rules for people like them, Black people. It was a truth Carla had carried with her throughout her life. From the time she could walk, Carla had witnessed her parents' daily grind. While her friends' parents worked 9-to-5 jobs, Carla's parents worked split shifts, sometimes barely making ends meet. Despite these hardships, Carla excelled academically. She was determined to get into a good college, to break free from the limitations of her circumstances. And so, while other teenagers were out enjoying the freedom of their youth, Carla spent countless hours studying, working part-time jobs, and doing whatever she could to ensure she would be accepted to a prestigious university. After receiving her degree, Carla knew she had to carve out a place for herself in a world where opportunities for people like her were scarce. She wasn't content with just a steady job. She wanted to build something. With grit and resilience, she started Harris Financial, a small consulting firm that over time grew into one of the most successful financial firms in the country. She had become a powerful force in the business world, but even as her company flourished, Carla never forgot where she came from. The story of her grandmother, Margaret Turner, was one that haunted Carla throughout her career. Margaret, despite having excellent credit and a steady income, had been turned away from Monarch Bank 30 years ago. Her application for a modest home loan had been rejected, with vague excuses about the neighborhood's qualifications. The real reason, as Carla knew all too well, was race. Margaret had been denied the opportunity to buy a home, and as a result, her family remained stuck in rental housing for years, unable to build the wealth that homeownership would have provided. It was a painful chapter in Carla's family history, one that left scars that her mother and father had never fully healed from. Carla's acquisition of Monarch Bank wasn't just a financial move, it was a deeply personal one. She didn't want to just buy another institution to expand her portfolio. She wanted to own a piece of the system that had failed her family for generations. She wanted to confront the structural biases that had kept people like her grandmother from accessing opportunities they rightfully deserved. By purchasing Monarch, Carla was taking ownership not just of a financial institution, but of a legacy of discrimination that she was determined to change. Her decision to conduct an undercover investigation was born from a need to understand exactly how the bank operated, especially when it came to its dealings with minority customers. Carla was well aware that institutional racism often hid behind policies and procedures, things that couldn't always be identified in audits or quarterly reports. To bring real change, she had to witness firsthand how customers were treated when they were perceived as having little power or influence. It wasn't just about the numbers. It was about the lived experiences of people who were still being denied access to basic services based on their race. As Carla walked through the marble floors of Monarch Bank, observing the luxury of the space, she couldn't help but think of her grandmother. Margaret Turner had never set foot in a bank like this. If she had, maybe things would have been different. Maybe she could have bought a house, built wealth, and passed something meaningful down to her family. But that wasn't the case, and Carla knew that change wouldn't come unless someone was willing to challenge the very system that had long denied people like her grandmother the opportunity to succeed. Carla's first visit to Monarch Bank was carefully planned. She had donned a simple outfit, navy slacks, sensible shoes, and a plain white blouse with a cardigan. She wore no jewelry, no designer labels, just an ordinary middle-class appearance, the kind of outfit that blended into the background rather than stood out. Carla knew that to understand the heart of the bank's discrimination, she needed to be invisible in the crowd, to be seen as just another customer. Arriving early on a Tuesday morning, she entered the lobby and joined the line of 4 customers waiting for service. Monarch Bank's interior was everything one would expect from an established financial institution. Marble columns, rich mahogany counters, and brass fixtures that projected an image of stability. The lobby exuded luxury, but Carla's eyes scanned the room with a sense of purpose, noticing how the design seemed to reflect the kind of clientele Monarch catered to. Those already wealthy, not those striving to build wealth. She observed the interactions ahead of her as customers were called to the tellers. A white businessman in his 50s was ushered immediately to a private consultation desk. An elderly white couple was given detailed advice on their retirement accounts, with the staff smiling and addressing them with care. Carla noted the contrast in the attention given to each customer. She knew that she wasn't being treated the same way. When it was her turn, she approached the teller, a young man named Aiden who appeared to be in his 20s. He greeted her with a polite smile, but his hesitation was visible as she approached his window. His face flickered with uncertainty, though he quickly masked it, trying to appear professional. Carla introduced herself with a calm, clear voice. "I'm looking to open a checking and savings account and possibly inquire about investment options in the future," she said, presenting her identification. "I'm new to the area and just wanted to get some information." Instead of offering her a direct consultation with a personal banker, as she had seen with other customers, Aiden handed her a brochure. "You can find all the account information online," he said, his voice quieter than before. "Or if you prefer, the ATM can help you open an account without waiting." Carla's eyes narrowed slightly, taking in the subtle discrimination. The suggestion that she should use the ATM instead of being assisted by a banker was a classic tactic that steered customers, like her, away from personalized service. It was an invitation to do business with a machine, not a person, an invitation that had been extended to no one else in the bank that day. Aiden's discomfort was palpable, his eyes darting nervously toward his supervisor, Martin Jenkins, who was watching the exchange closely. "I'd prefer to speak with someone about my options," Carla said firmly but politely, her voice clear. "I have specific questions about your investment services as well." Aiden hesitated but agreed to make a call to check for availability. As he spoke, Carla could hear him telling someone at the other end of the line, "I have a walk-in looking for account services. She's requesting a banker." Yes, she specifically asked for a banker. The coded language was clear. Carla wasn't just another customer, she was being treated differently, a fact made evident when a white woman entered the bank shortly after. She was dressed in a similar manner to Carla, but when she approached, Martin Jenkins immediately moved from his desk to greet her. His voice, warm and welcoming, carried through the lobby. "Good morning. Welcome to Monarch Bank. Are you looking to open an account today? I'd be happy to assist you personally." Carla watched, her gaze steady, as the white woman was ushered into a private consultation almost immediately. The stark contrast between how the two women, both dressed similarly and with similar banking needs, were treated was undeniable. The only difference was the color of their skin. The unfairness was painfully clear. Carla wasn't just another customer in the bank. She was an invisible, second-class citizen in their eyes, despite having the same financial qualifications as anyone else. "I understand that there might be a wait," Carla said to Aiden, maintaining a polite but firm tone. "I'd be happy to schedule an appointment if that would be easier." As Aiden fumbled with his paperwork, trying to avoid eye contact, Carla felt a deep sense of frustration, but also resolve. This was why she was here. This was what she needed to witness firsthand. The treatment she had just experienced wasn't an anomaly. It was part of the system, a system that saw people like her as lesser, as not worthy of the same respect or service as others. But Carla wouldn't leave, not until she had seen it all and documented it for the world to know. Carla's second visit to Monarch Bank was planned with more precision than the first. She knew the bank's practices now, and she was prepared. Armed with additional documentation, tax returns, proof of address, and business registration, she returned to the same branch with the intention of pushing further into the heart of the system. The bank was busier this time, with a mix of customers waiting in line and others sitting at consultation desks engaging with bankers. Carla approached the same teller, Aiden, who looked up when he saw her. His face flashed with recognition before he quickly lowered his gaze, avoiding eye contact. "Good morning," Carla said, her tone even but firm. "I'd like to open both a checking and a savings account today and discuss your investment services. I've brought all the necessary documentation." Aiden hesitated for a moment. Carla could see the discomfort in his eyes as he glanced toward his manager, Martin, who was standing nearby, observing. Aiden picked up the phone and spoke to someone on the other end, speaking in hushed tones. "Are all the personal bankers busy?" Carla asked, her voice calm but pointed. Aiden nodded, his lips tight. "Yes, all the bankers are with clients at the moment. If you'd like, you can wait or schedule an appointment." "Scheduling an appointment sounds fine," Carla replied, still maintaining her composure. But her patience was wearing thin. She had seen this behavior before. The suggestion that she, a well-qualified and professional woman, needed to wait for a simple service was not only frustrating, but it was discriminatory. At that moment, Martin Jenkins, who had been standing by the desk, approached with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He gave Carla a quick, dismissive glance before turning his attention to a nearby white customer who had just entered. Without skipping a beat, Martin welcomed the new customer, a white man in casual business attire, with a warmth that Carla had yet to receive. "Good morning. Welcome to Monarch Bank. How can I assist you today?" Martin said, his voice filled with enthusiasm. Carla observed, her eyes narrowing. She had seen the difference in treatment clearly now. This wasn't about service. It was about who the bank valued and who it did not. The man, dressed in business casual, was ushered immediately to a private desk for a personal consultation. Meanwhile, Carla, in a similarly modest outfit, was still being treated as if she didn't belong. "Excuse me," Carla said, cutting through the awkward silence. "I've been waiting for quite a while now. Would it be possible to speak with someone about my account options?" Martin turned to her then, his tone cooler. "We typically recommend using our online services for new accounts," he said dismissively. "Our personal bankers are busy with existing clients." Carla felt a sharp pang of frustration but controlled it. She had anticipated this, and she knew the only way to move forward was to keep her composure. "I'd still prefer to speak with a banker," she said. "I have specific questions that require detailed information. I don't think an online brochure will be enough." She made her voice louder now, firm and resolute. "And I'd also like to inquire about your investment services. I've come prepared to invest, and I want to make sure I speak to someone who can provide me with all the necessary information." Aiden, who had been standing behind the counter, shifted uncomfortably as he looked toward Martin for guidance. His discomfort was palpable. Carla could see that the situation was growing tense. "You know what?" Carla said after a moment, her tone shifting slightly. "I don't think I'll wait any longer. I'll just make an appointment." Before Aiden could respond, Martin stepped forward and placed a hand on the counter. "We can schedule you for tomorrow," he said, his voice curt. "But if you'd prefer, there's another bank a few blocks down that might suit your needs better." Carla didn't miss the subtle implication. It was the suggestion that she wasn't worth their time, that she should go elsewhere, as if her business wasn't valued here. She had heard these kinds of dismissive comments before, comments that came not from a lack of business, but from an ingrained sense of superiority based on race. "I'll be happy to schedule an appointment for tomorrow," Carla replied coolly. "But I want you to know that I've been a customer here for quite a while now. I expect to be treated with the same respect as any other customer." Carla left the bank without arguing further, but she knew exactly what had just occurred. She had been systematically dismissed, treated as less valuable than other customers, simply because of her appearance and the assumptions they had made about her based on her race. This was more than just a few isolated incidents. It was an institutional issue, a deeply ingrained bias that had been a part of Monarch Bank's operations for far too long, and Carla was going to expose it all. Carla's third visit to Monarch Bank was the culmination of everything she had been preparing for. After 2 visits filled with subtle and overt discrimination, she was ready for the final confrontation. This time she walked into the bank with an air of confidence, her posture straight and her expression calm yet purposeful. The bank, still as polished as ever, seemed almost a caricature of itself now. It stood as a monument to what Carla had come to expose. The lobby was just as busy as before, but this time, Carla didn't wait in line. She approached the customer service desk directly. Martin Jenkins was sitting at his desk, chatting with a few colleagues. When he saw Carla walking toward him, his demeanor shifted immediately, his eyes narrowing, his smile stiffening. He stood up to greet her, but his forced politeness was obvious. "Good morning, ma'am," he said, his voice flat. "Can I help you with something?" "I'd like to speak with someone about business loan options," Carla said, her voice clear and firm. "I'm considering expanding my consulting business, and I'd like to know what options Monarch offers for that." Martin, already assuming the interaction would be just like the others, looked down at his desk. "We're currently with a few clients, but I can have someone assist you shortly." Carla nodded, but her mind was already at work. She was ready to make this moment count. She had planned for everything, including the possibility that they would continue to dismiss her. Carla had come prepared, not only with the documents she had already brought, but with a plan to expose the bank's practices to the world. As she sat in the waiting area, Carla overheard Martin speaking with several employees, subtly discussing her. She could hear the familiar murmurs, the judgment they cast on her before even speaking to her. They saw her as an outsider, not someone worthy of their time. She wasn't one of them. She was a black woman, and in their eyes, she didn't fit the profile of their ideal customer. But this time, everything was different. After a few moments, a senior loan officer named Vivian Mercer approached Carla with a thin folder of loan information. Her face was as neutral as ever, but her eyes avoided Carla's as she handed over the materials. "We have some standard business loan options," Vivian said coolly. "This is the general information about our services." Carla's eyes flicked to the folder. She opened it briefly, only to find vague marketing materials, not the personalized loan options she was expecting. "I was hoping to discuss specific options that might work for my business," Carla said, her voice firm, now carrying a bit more weight. "I've brought projections and business plans. I'd like to discuss the best strategy for my needs." Vivian's discomfort was evident now, but she quickly shifted her gaze toward Martin. Carla could see the subtle glance exchanged between them, a silent conversation that passed unnoticed by most. Vivian's professional mask began to slip as she stammered, "Our business lending specialists are currently with clients. You could leave your materials and we can contact you later." Carla wasn't fooled. She had been here long enough to know what was happening. The suggestion that she was being pushed aside for the second time was not an accident. She knew the drill. At that moment, the doors opened again, and another white man, dressed in a crisp suit, walked in. Martin immediately stood, his demeanor completely changing as he rushed to greet the man. "Mr. Davidson, it's great to see you again. We've discussed your business loan, and Bryson is ready for you," Martin said warmly, guiding the man to a private consultation. Carla didn't blink. She had seen enough. The contrast was stark. This was it, the moment she had been preparing for. She stood, gathered her things, and walked directly to Martin, who was still speaking with the man. "Excuse me, Martin," Carla said, her voice unwavering. "I couldn't help but notice that Mr. Davidson here was immediately assisted, while I've been waiting for quite a while with no clear explanation. Are your business loan specialists only available for certain clients?" Martin looked at her, taken aback by her directness. "I'm not sure what you mean," Carla interrupted him, her eyes now steely. "I mean, why is it that when a white customer walks in, they're immediately given priority, but I have to sit and wait? Is it because of my race?" A few heads turned in the lobby at her words, but Carla kept her composure. She wasn't done yet. "I've been treated differently from every other customer in this bank. I've been pushed aside, ignored, and given excuses. And I've had enough." Martin's expression shifted from confusion to irritation. But before he could respond, Carla took out her phone and dialed a number from memory. She put it on speaker. "Hello, this is Desiree Williams," a clear, professional voice answered, audible to everyone in the lobby. Carla smiled, watching the reactions around her. "Desiree, could you please let the staff here know that I am the owner of Monarch Bank?" The room went silent. Martin's face went pale as Desiree's voice filled the lobby. "Of course, Ms. Harris," Desiree said, the shock in Martin's face telling Carla all she needed to know. Carla took a step forward, the weight of the moment settling in. "I own this bank, Martin. I've owned it for weeks, and you've been treating me like I'm just another customer, like I don't matter." Martin's jaw dropped, his color draining. The power dynamic had completely shifted. Carla turned toward the rest of the staff and customers, her voice now carrying the weight of authority. "This bank will be undergoing immediate changes. You will all be held accountable for your actions, and this behavior will not be tolerated." She handed Martin the documents that proved her ownership of Monarch Bank, and the reality of the situation set in. The employees' reactions were immediate, with Martin visibly shaken, Bryson looking for a way out, and Vivian avoiding eye contact. Carla had done what she set out to do. She had exposed the systemic discrimination at Monarch Bank and made it clear that accountability would come, starting with the people who perpetuated the bias. Carla walked out of the bank that day with a sense of satisfaction, not just because she had exposed the wrongdoing, but because she knew real change was on the horizon. The world would know what had happened, and more importantly, it would never be the same for Monarch Bank again.